Welcome to another Pantheon Rise of the Fallen Developer series. I'm Dan. Rob there is operating the camera. He's joining us as well. And on the air today, we have Vu, senior artist, and the director of communications for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, Ben. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Hey guys, thanks for having us again.
Thank you. Hello.
Starting out here, we have a lot of things going on in front of us. Once again, we see Vu's desktop as you're working on things. We've seen this terrain before a couple weeks ago on our first developer series. You've changed a lot, though. What has all changed in this area so far?
Just put a little bit more attention into the surrounding areas, even though this area needs some more work. I haven't really gone over there. I started to put some different little outposts in different areas for people to go and explore. More of a guard defense up here that kind of moves back here towards the other base or the other entrance of the base. And then while it's working, but I'll run around it and show some people what's going on here.
You were mentioning before that you were looking at different water tones for this zone. We actually got to see you change out a couple times here. How does the water textures and water skins work in the in this development kit?
Well, I mean, it's just a shader, an animated shader that's got all the effects on it. There's going to be different settings for nighttime and daytime just to have different reflectivity. Some water is going to have more motion. It's just a lot of it just goes down to the settings that's predetermined, which I really don't have the function or the experience setting up the shaders right now until I dive deeper into that. But later on, we'll be able to adjust the different colors, the murkiness, the speed of the water. There's other waters like flowing water, and there's like waterfalls and particles that we'll be able to put in there. And along the coastline and stuff like that would be nice to get some particle effects of just like little white water of foam in the rivers and different areas like that, just to make things look more alive, more real.
We can see a lot of new changes here. Again, we saw this area just starting to come together a couple weeks ago on our first developer series, and it's looking fantastic. It's looking gorgeous. You put so much detail and time into this so far. Semper called this the Sunken Sanctum in chat. Is that what this place is called?
This is the outside area. The Sunken Sanctum is actually the dungeon that you explore in, and that is going to be kind of more of a mausoleum type. Is it a mortuary type of building where there'll be more tombs and stuff to describe the dungeon a little bit more. We haven't really gotten into the props and the objects to kind of add flavor. We're just really kind of trying to lay down foundations of how big the dungeons are and how it sprawls out.
Now, with that being said, thank you all for joining us once again here on twitch.tv/The Rob and Dan Show. It's so great to have you guys here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat. We are very much paying attention to it. If you ask a question, we will see it. You can ask a question at any point in time during the broadcast, and I myself will try and pick it up as quickly as possible. Also, you can find our archives of the previous episodes of the Pantheon Developer Series over on our YouTube page at youtube.com/The Rob and Dan Show. Going over things now. What updates in the last week have we had over on the Kickstarter page, Ben?
There's been a good bit of activity. We put out, well, when did we last meet? I guess it was
last Monday.
Last Monday. So we would have had 3 more classes. Which 3 classes were they? It would have been the Enchanter, the Wizard, and the Shaman. We've also touched base on the Halfling and Gnome races. Those races are sort of a stretch goal right now. But as with all stretch goals, if at all possible, we're going to have them in for launch. They're just labeled as stretch goals now until we can get the proper funding to be able to get to there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so yeah, I guess 5 in total. And we've done some other updates as well, but those were the big ones.
Enchanter, you describe, or the the Kickstarter rather describes as utility, crowd control, buffing, stunning, something that you call mesmerizing and charming as well. Could you just tell us a little bit about these specific mechanics that you guys haven't imagined for the Enchanter?
Yeah, well, it's like anything else when it comes to class design in the fact that we want to make every role not only useful but also fun to play. We had a little bit of a discussion on that, and in fact, there's a recent interview on 10-Tone Hammer as well that discussed that a little bit. Sometimes some of the older games would feel that if you need to be useful in a group, you would have your specific role, but it wasn't necessarily fun all the time. And there's no reason that has to be the case. So with the Enchanter, for example, it's our crowd control. We're bringing back crowd control to a larger extent than has been done recently. It's going to be necessary to use it tactically to control groups of mobs and specific encounters where you're not going to want to fight everything all at once, but you're going to need somebody to be able to control the ads and all of that stuff. So the Enchanter sort of comes in two flavors: the Beguiler and the Phantasmist. The Beguiler is more of a mesmerizing type specialization, so he'll keep mobs locked down and mesmerized so that they're not disturbing during the fight. The Phantasmist is really kind of cool because they specialize more in charming, and they can actually control groups of mobs as well instead of just single mobs at once. So you can have your own little army if you're playing an Enchanter.
So you can mind control people. You can grab them and say, "No, you're doing what I tell you now."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a unique. You don't really see that mechanic going on much in MMOs, but it's going to be interesting to see that. I hate to backtrack slightly, but you said 10-Ton Hammer recently did a piece talking about that. Is that their January 28th interview with Brad McQuaid?
No, this one actually went up yesterday.
Yesterday.
It was an interview with myself, actually.
We do have a... Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, it was just it was an interview on the niche gaming, and basically how we intend to target that niche and why we feel it's a viable plan to make a game for a targeted audience like this.
There we go. I just found the link to that. I see that now. This is a very in-depth piece. You go through a lot of questions here.
Yeah, it was a fun interview, to be honest, because we really got to explain why we're making the game for the kind of people that we want to make the game for, and exactly how we intend on doing that. So it was definitely a fun interview.
We went ahead and linked that interview, that article in the chat. Go ahead, Rob.
We have a question in chat from Jim Bellini. It's what are some of the challenges that you encounter when designing a new zone?
When designing a new zone, challenges, I don't know about challenges. It's just pretty much you want to create something that people want to go to. Maybe if anything, there's going to be just challenges, huh? I don't think there's too many challenges right nowadays. I mean, a lot of things are covered. It's just getting the design and just getting a good zone to get into play. But you always want to make sure that the zones run good and they look efficient. They look good, run efficiently, and play fun, pretty much. But that's a team effort. It doesn't really come down to me. There's always interaction between me and the designer and the art director and the programmers, and seeing what can be achieved.
In chat,
but yeah, also.
One of the challenges that someone suggests in chat, Azams in chat says, how do you avoid things like dead spots?
Dead spots as in where people constantly die?
I'm thinking it might be more like a dead spot of, like, here's an area that doesn't really have a whole lot going on in it, so it's not as interesting as other spots of the zone.
A content-wise dead spot where, yeah, things just seem dead. Things just aren't happening.
Well, we pretty much just try to design something in there. We'll try and write a story and put some features in there to make it interesting and have people give the players a reason to go there, either with some interesting art or mobs or even loot that people will want. You just got to entice people to go there.
This area is looking really cool, by the way, Vu.
Oh
Thanks.
yeah, oh yeah. This looks like it's really coming together well. And I remember when we were doing the first episode of this, and it was just starting to come together. It's looking great. Van had a really long question in chat. Rob, could you go over that and
Okay.
kind of condense it while I ask another question?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Going over quickly to the Kickstarter, guys, it is a strong reminder. Please consider donating to the Kickstarter. You guys have 10 days left to go. I was close. 10 days left to go. Please consider donating. The link not only is below in the video itself, the link is right there. You can just type it into your browser from there, or you can take it from chat. You can also go below the video here and hit the Pantheon Rise of the Fallen button we have in our rules and our different links we have for the Twitch page.
Okay, so Banshees is basically asking about pet classes, and he's referring to Dark Age of Camelot. It had the Mentalist class to permanently control one of many monsters in the world as a pet. And pet classes were favorites for solos who had difficulty getting into groups, and he was just a little concerned over the mention about the game being designed mainly for groups. So he was just wondering if there's going to be pet classes as an option for people that are more solo-oriented.
Well, there is a pet class, and the Shaman sort of has a pet as well. But in reality, we want to maintain our goal of making it a group focused game. Now, as we've said in the past, that doesn't mean that you're going to constantly have to be grouping. But the vast majority of the content is going to be group oriented. But if you're clever enough and you're skilled enough, you should be able to find some areas where you'll be able to solo. I mean, there's definitely going to be options so that you don't have to sit around LFG all the time and just waiting for a group to pick you up. But that being said, like I said, it's going to be primarily group based. Yeah.
Going back to questions here, honestly, it sounds like you are going to have some of those pet mechanics too. I was going to go back to questions, but this just hit me like a brick to the head. It sounds like some of the Enchanter abilities, you were talking about that earlier, the ability to control mobs and stuff like that is going to be similar to what Ban was asking about, where you can grab these groups of mobs, say, no, you're mine at least for a few moments here. You're going to do my bidding. It sounds like that's going to kind of feed into a pet class of sorts, even if it's not consistent pets.
Yeah. Yeah. See, when I think of pet classes, I think of classes that have inherent pets. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could sort of classify charmed mobs as pets, but they're not going to be necessarily permanent. Well, I shouldn't say that. Salim might have some design ideas where he might decide that there's some option for permanent, but I don't know. That's more on the design phase. So you'd have to talk to him about that.
I wanted to go over the wizard stuff, but there are a couple more questions in chat I would love to hit on here. First one, Amsai in chat is asking about gamepad support. Is that a possibility?
Again, it's a little early to say, but from my understanding, that's not too difficult to implement. It would really be something that the designers would go over and discuss. The good thing about our game is that you're not going to have a whole ton of hotbars up at all times. So you'll have a lot fewer abilities. So that being said, it's definitely conducive to more of that kind of controller environment.
Semper was asking about the actual textures of this. Vu, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but in previous episodes, you have said that a lot of the models we're seeing right now are placeholders. They will be updated. They will be changed.
Yeah, most likely. A lot of this stuff is still placeholder until we, can function as a team and sit there and figure out, what things are going to be and kind of finalize decisions. The grass and rock, they're going to be eventually rock, steel, and grass. So the environment, the building textures and stuff, they're going to be more detailed, and all the color or the color in it, the color should all be palletized and coordinated with each other. So everything still is placeholder, relatively just work in progress.
Going on to the next class I want to talk about, the Wizard. I love mage classes. DPS and support, as one would expect. The style is described as magical damage and shape-shifting with arcane elemental damage, teleporting, and party enchantment. Par for the course. We don't normally see shape-shifting as a mage kind of thing, but maybe that's my World of Warcraft experience kind of hindering me there. Tell us more about the Wizard.
Well, the cool thing with the Wizard is like you mentioned, the shape shifting. That's just one of the flares that class has. It's primarily a DPS class. You've got two different specializations: the Frenzy and the Aspect. The cool thing about the Wizard is that they're constantly battling the corruption that prolonged magic use has on their minds. So if they go Frenzy, they can really, do some big, heavy damage, but they're going to go insane while doing it. So they're going to either want to kind of limit themselves or just give in to the madness, which will definitely have penalties as well if they end up going that route. The Aspect is more of a melee type idea, although it still has some spell abilities, but it has a shape-shifting abilities to take on elemental forms and can dual wield weapons. So that would be pretty cool too, and something. It's been done on some other games too, but it's not something that you see commonly for Wizards.
Sounds like a kind of a low armor battle shaman.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that pinged to me about the Frenzy mages, it sounds very Warhammer-esque, where you have order and chaos. And magic is the expression of both of those in their worst and best forms. So you have this balance going on of trying to be, in control of your magic or trying to obliterate things. And it always seems to go towards obliteration and chaos and that kind of corruption. Did that have any impact or effect on how you guys designed the Wizard?
Well, I can't really speak for how the design came about. I wasn't involved in that meeting. But what I do know is that early on, it was always sort of intended to have the undertones of the magic within Terminus sort of have its own kind of story going on. For instance, we've talked a little bit about the traveling in Pantheon, where there will be options for fast travel, but it's going to be perilous. So you'd end up going to these locations where you could teleport to and from, but it's going to be incredibly dangerous. And using those portals will have its own effects as well. And these portals are also guarded more per se by wizards who have been using this magic and been around this magic, and then they've gone mad. So if you even want to get to one of the portal, you're going to have to, watch out for these wizards and all of that stuff. So that's going to be kind of cool. And that's kind of the idea of how the magic in the world has sort of corrupted the minds of the people that are in close contact with it. So that sort of carried over into the wizard design as well. In fact, I believe Salim was saying that, that was one of the main things, was having these mad wizards who are able to teleport but have been using the magic so long that they've gone insane and will just kill anything that comes around them. So anyway, I'm sure that was part of the design of the wizard when it came about.
Alrighty, a couple questions there in chat now. A couple saying that they're definitely going to choose madness over survival. Oh my goodness!
Now,
Not a surprise.
Zombies has another question in chat. At first glance at the class list shows us a boiled down fundamental list. However, as a player, I say you're giving the tank up to hybrids. Is this an attempt to please group players with more functionality, even though you water down a tank? Is an EverQuest 1 Berserker-style hybrid or some sort of enraging blow riposte tank to be down the line?
I don't know if it's necessarily watered down. I mean, we kind of view things like as MMO players. It sounds like Salim's here. Salim, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Salim.
What's up, Salim?
Hey, what's going on?
So yeah, with the yeah, actually, you know what? If you want to field that, go ahead, Salim.
We haven't given tanks to hybrids. We have a purely physical tank style, which is the what do we call that dude? The
Cavalier.
dual shield wielding guy is purely physical. He's effectively an EverQuest 1 warrior with a little flavor. The notion of a crusader does not necessarily mean it's a hybrid. We actually were going to go with Cavalier initially, which is just a knight, but we ended up sticking with Crusader. So yeah, we're not giving up tanks to hybrids, and we don't really view them that way. We just view them as classes. Just, you know, this guy does something cool. This is what defines him as a class, and that's that.
Yeah, absolutely. Salim, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick for those that haven't experienced the Pantheon Developer Series before.
My name is Salim Grant. I'm the director of development. You might also know me as Elias.
You know, I want to just really quick throw a question I had for Ben at you really quick about the wizard. Is there any kind of Warhammer influence on the wizard with the whole madness situation?
Was that for me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can you guys give me 2 seconds? My wife's calling me with an emergency.
Oh,
Give me 2
sure.
seconds and I'll answer.
Sure.
When I get
I've
back.
already
we'll
answered
move on.
that question, but it wasn't the proper answer because I wasn't involved in the design of it. So.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I was hoping for more information. I'm very
Yeah,
curious.
no, that's all good.
Let's. Do we have a couple questions from the chat? I haven't been looking at it, unfortunately.
Let's see.
Not really. So let's.
Well,
really quick-
would a planeswalker be in danger of going mad like wizards when they shift planes?
Oh,
That's a really good question. That's something that Salim would also be better fitted to answer when he gets off the phone.
we can save that one until Salim gets back.
Yeah,
Not a problem.
I would think so because I mean they're kind of going into that same realm anyway, right?
Mhm.
Like and that whole realm is what's corrupted.
Okay, back.
All right,
Sorry. Very, very sorry about that.
No,
That's
no
okay.
problem at all.
we're just redesigning the game. It's
Yeah,
Oh,
nothing big. No big deal.
Okay.
The chat had a question for you. Semper, I'm sorry, not Semper. Amsai was asking, would planeswalkers be in danger of going mad like a wizard when they shift planes?
No. So a planestalker is just
Oh,
shifting
planestalker,
into. He's shifting into. Kind of stepping into that fold, and a planestalker he's effectively soaked himself in this planar energy as a part of his training. He's given up the whole physical side of stealth and all that stuff, although they're still stealthy. They just do it in a different way to kind of become one with it, and his, that just translates into being able to somewhat manipulate it or just kind of exist within it, whereas the wizard he's channeling that energy through his body constantly. He's acting like basically a shunt for this chaotic magic, which is why he's kind of like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. His brain is just flipping out because controlling that level of power is just insane.
Alrighty. I believe that. Yeah, sorry. That was my. I mispronounced that. It's not Planeswalker. It's Planestalker.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
And some confusion in the chat, like, what? No, that was just me misspeaking. One more last class that got revealed the past week. We have the Shaman.
Yes.
It is a healer, debuffer, and support. Salim, can you tell us more about the Shaman?
This class actually, yeah, I'm really, well, of course, if you guys have heard me talk about any of our classes, I'm excited about all of them. But this one, you know, last night again, like the wizard, I was just like, oh my god, I can see us do this, that, and the other. So, you know, anyone who played EverQuest 1 Shaman, this one is steeped deeply in that notion of this, you know, extremely versatile class. You know, threw regions on people, slowed mobs, had a cool pet, you know, cannibalized itself for mana. You know, just kind of this cool package. You know, it wasn't super powerful, but just really fun to play. This is the same deal. We took the notion of that Shaman and tried to focus on its two elements, kind of like what we did with the Enchanter. And so one side of it is what we're calling a ritualist, and this one is inspired by kind of a witch doctor or a voodoo type class. And this one can basically take the spiritual energy and can breathe life into like voodoo dolls and throw them. So you know, just imagine like you have this cool stitched up doll, and you know it whispers something and like kind of blows this life into it, and it whispers like the ritual incantation for a bomb, and it throws it into the crowd, and it sits there, and this little dude, this little voodoo doll, maybe has a little knife in his hand, he's just sitting there and he's powering up and he's just like laughing wickedly, and then boom, he blows up. Or it turns into this giant, you know, voodoo golem that starts attacking things nearby. Could also have like a miasma aura on it that just debuffs these things around it, maybe keeps their attention. You know, the ritualist is the healer. What else does the thing can do? A lot of stuff, but ultimately it's just like it's the witch doctor. It's doing rituals. It's you know, doing dances and stuff like that, and summoning healing rituals on its group, and there's a lot of really cool gameplay and imagery with this guy. If anyone's played Zelda Majora's Mask, just think about the creepy. Oh, man, what was that character called? There's a creepy character that had. What's that?
Mask Kid.
I think it was a Mask Kid. The character that had like the came accompanied with the kind of that creepy like clacking sound, and just had the mask, and yeah, my brain's starting to think about kind of the art side of this thing, what we could do, but so it's just kind of like that. This guy maybe has a staff with like bones on strings, and they kind of clack around as he walks and stuff. So very, very cool concept. The other side of it is basically it started out as kind of in my mind, I wanted to just have this kind of brute shaman who mainly wielded like two-handed hammers, and had his pet with him, and he would just go in there and he would just do crazy stuff. You know, he'd throw poisons here and there, but he's a very offensive type buffer, which was another great thing about the EverQuest Shaman. Things like Avatar, Focus of Spirit. So you know, our lead programmer, when we were talking about it, he's like, hey, maybe they can, you know, kind of collect spirit energy and things like that, and that kind of spun off into, you know, the pet can create openings for the shaman to take advantage of melee wise, but the pet, when it's fighting, it's made out of spirit energy, and it kind of absorbs spirit energy, and whenever something dies around it, you know, it basically absorbs a large chunk of spirit energy, and that spirit energy, the link between the pet and the shaman allows their base abilities to unlock more things on them. So if I just had Hammer Strike, I'm using it, you know, it's a cool ability. It does Hammer Strike. But, you know, if I get to like, you know, Spirit Energy level 50, or I get 50 Spirit Energy, now I unlock, you know, group-wide haste or something like that when I use Hammer Strike. So it kind of a cool synergy. if anyone's played EverQuest 2, the Beast Lord from EverQuest 2, which I designed, it kind of has that feel to it. Definitely a lot of potential there, but it's just two sides of the EQ1 Shaman, and I really dig it. I think it's going to be a pretty sweet class.
Remember, guys, please consider going to the link below the video or the Kickstarter short link in the video itself. Please consider donating to this Kickstarter. There's a ton of backer options left for you, although not quite as much as there were a few days ago. You have everything from the $425 option, the Reborn's Pledge, to the $250 options, which gives you a lot of things. So do keep that in mind. We also had something come out, and Ben mentioned this before, that there were these stretch races that were announced, the Halfling and the Gnome. Can you tell us any more about those?
You guys always ask questions that Tony can answer.
Yeah, the race stuff is more lore oriented.
Okay.
I mean, definitely stuff like, will there be racials and stuff like that? We'll definitely have that stuff, and we're going to try to make sure that they're different, useful, without being game breaking. You know, basically make the perfect ones. But as far as like, you know, the inner workings and stuff like that, that's all Tony's stuff. He and I interact on that stuff, but I let him just run with it and try to play with whatever he comes up with.
See, I'm just looking at the screen here now, and this is an example of a challenging game because I'm noticing no fences on that page.
There is no safety bar.
Yes.
Good luck if you fall off.
Yeah, and one of them will probably be a trap, and you'll probably have to, you know, figure out which one not to fall through.
No,
It's perfect.
It'd just be a wind trap.
Yeah.
Play off the side.
Oh,
It's just going to be a tightrope, and you're going to have to tightrope it across.
There was a question for Ben in chat. As Relix had this to say: any plans on throwing out a concept arts demo, gameplay, etc., with there being only 10 days left in the Kickstarter? People are starting to get itchy for those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing all that we can. We have Vu working on this stuff, and then we've got our lead artist as well, James Rochelle, doing what we can. In terms of a playable demo, I don't think you're going to be seeing that before Kickstarter is over, but it's definitely something that we want to work on.
Now, you were saying previous that you had a combat, like an in-house combat demo?
Well, we're working on the combat system.
Okay.
In-house.
Yeah, it's not a demo. It's a prototype. It's one of our earlier prototypes of combat. We're just trying to test out the concept to see A, if it would work, and B, how it would feel.
Okay,
so
just internal concept at the
very
moment.
rudimentary.
Yeah, it doesn't have full animations or anything like that. It's
No.
just.
There was a question earlier, and I do not remember who asked it. I apologize for that. But there was someone asking what you guys have so far for a combat system in game.
So pretty much everything that we release about the combat system on the website is functional in the prototype. Setting up abilities, putting abilities in different sets, swapping out those ability sets, all that stuff is functioning. The notion of preparation, all that stuff, is just part of the combat. But we don't have abilities dropping or anything like that, because once again, it's just a prototype. It's a prototype of combat specifically. But all that functionality is there and working. The core part of combat, everything that we posted is currently in there working. Really, at this point, it's at a stage where I could go in and start working on abilities and figuring out the nitty gritty of how things will grow, what different passes would be on there. So it's that part of it is actually pretty well done. Just needs polish, and it's obviously rough edges, but yeah.
Right now in front of us, we have the dragon. It is much more detailed and much more quite dynamic than we saw previously. It's starting to really come together here, Vu. Any ideas yet to what you want to use it for? I know you're talking a little bit last week about that. Anything concrete yet?
Well, I'll try to sneak it in the game somehow. He'll get in there.
We also had another question for you specifically, Vu. How often are you working on the map that you were previously showing and the dragon? How often during the weeks do you do that?
Well, divvy's up. Actually, I was gonna show you guys. Actually, I started another map here on this terrain. We're working on getting the terrain system, and I still need to get like some splat maps and stuff like that going on with the texture transitions and stuff like that. But just getting a height map in there that we're creating with a different program board machine, and being able to produce large outdoor zones. And this is just one of the terrains I created. There's no color mapping or texture transitions right now, but this is just pretty much getting a height map in there and getting a large zone relatively quick and easy.
Well, do you have plans yet for the zone? I see it's called the Wastes. What's the concept going into this?
This is actually the area that was supposed to be where there was a lot of impact going on with the planar collisions. So there's supposed to be some activity going on, and there'll be some dungeons and other areas that people will be able to explore once they go through here. But it's kind of basing it off this scene right here on my desktop. Just kind of gonna be more of a area with cataclysms and explosions and little ruins where people will be able to go and explore.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just the process of getting a large overland area in there, and that way we could go in there later on and kind of flesh it out in detail, put in some points of interest and some indicators of dungeons.
Mm-hmm. Amsai in chat was asking about mobs. What work have you guys done so far on the mobs, and is there anything you could show us that are semi-finished or finished mob models?
No, we don't have anything going on with the mobs yet.
Not that far in development?
No, not yet.
What concepts do you guys have then for what kind of creatures, what kind of mobs you'd like to throw at people?
We have a bunny mantis.
We got a dragon.
Yeah, we got a dragon.
Yeah, we don't have much for concepts of that stuff just yet, and we're still trying to figure out population tools and areas and all that stuff. So before we concept out mobs, we need to know what mobs we actually want in certain areas, things like that. And ultimately, the first thing we would concept out is our races, just to get those things rolling.
Two other questions that I can kind of combine. R. Flynn, 74, and NY Dosa. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. They're asking basically about the scale of the world. R. Flynn asks, is it going to be scaled larger or smaller than Vanguard? And the other question is, what is your thoughts between an EverQuest-like zones versus a more larger open world design? Would it be like server load, based off a server load, or a return to being able to zone off mobs? And
we're going to be a zone-based game. How large the zones are, can't really say. They probably won't all be the same size, but the largest zone, I couldn't say what that would be. As far as overall world size, we have Celestius, the continent, and there's some other continents that are in the lore. But how big Celestius is, really don't know at this point. It would certainly not be as big as Vanguard, because Vanguard's 3 continents and very, very, very massive. And for a team our size, and just with what I experienced working on Vanguard, having a large world isn't always the best thing in the world. Populating that world, keeping it interesting as far as population goes, is not simple. I like the notion of a zone-based world, simply because you can theme the zone and you can have some level of control when it comes to events and things like that. There were a lot of nightmares dealing with the seamless world of Vanguard. So yeah, the plan right now is to be zone-based. How large they are, I couldn't really say right now. That's some research that we have to do in that regard.
And with the overall theme of the game that you've mentioned on the previous two developer series streams, you were saying that with the way the planes are basically smashing into each other, the scale of the world could possibly increase with new planes slamming into the current one.
Yeah. Our lore gives us a lot of potential. Once again, I referenced the Palladium paper pencil rift. I mean, all I had to do was drop a new source book, and it's like, oh, well, here's Atlantis. We're kind of in that same vein. We could literally just pull a plane out of anywhere and just say, okay, here's a new theme, as long as it fits. Which is kind of weird saying as long as it fits when we're talking about a planet made of a bunch of random planes, but as long as it fits within our overall theme of fantasy game, it should be fine. But if we wanted to, jump the shark and do that, our lore supports it inherently.
One thing I would really love to ask myself when it comes to zones and races and people in that regard, what are the factions going to look like for this game? Are there going to be multiple factions? Is there just one faction? Is there just two? And how do those factions interact?
Are you saying PC to PC factions or
Yes.
PC to NPC factions?
PC.
PC to player factions?
Is everyone one faction, or are there multiple different player factions like Alliance or Horde, or is it more like PlanetSide 2 where there's three factions?
Well, there will definitely be a notion of racial differences. How far an offset that is, we still need to. I mean, Tony and I have to talk about what that translates to in a game. But the notion of being KOS because you're a certain race, those things will definitely exist. Whether it's the player race directly, like the gnome starting area and an ogre comes over, whether they be KOS there versus just gnomes out in the world, is something that obviously we have to work out when we get down to the nitty gritty. But a varied amount of races or factions and how they interact with you is based off of your base race plus whatever modifiers that whole faction system, something like that, will exist and will be a big part of the gameplay experience, which any EverQuest player dug that factions were significant, because even if you're not a grindy type or whatever, the Ixar that was amiable in every city, that guy's awesome. That guy can walk tall through every city and be like, yep, I am an Ixar and all these guys love me. So yeah, there will definitely be stuff like that in the game.
Mm-hmm. Zoms is adding on to my question there and asking if this is going to be an RVR game.
No. Yeah, we don't have, our game isn't set up that way.
Okay. Alrighty.
Unless you're asking for like massive groups fighting massive groups in a particular zone, that could happen. But as far as the realms or the sides being separated, that's not what would occur.
I know when I hear RVR, I think Warhammer Online or Dark Age of Camelot. RVR.
Yeah. DAOC is the first thing that pops in my head for sure.
Oh yeah.
Fun times.
Righty.
Now you were saying that things would happen based on your race and then some modifiers. Would modifiers like that be possibly in-game, like NPC guilds or player guilds that you have allegiance to one guild and that alters how things happen with your character throughout the game?
And once again, are you talking about how your reaction, the NPC's reaction to you because of what guild you are in, what PC guild you're in? Is that what you're asking?
Well, not necessarily like a player-controlled guild, but more like a NPC-controlled. Like you made an allegiance with like this NPC faction, and
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that's inherent. I mean that's inherently how the faction system would work, right?
Okay.
It's checks and balances. If you raise this, this goes down. In order to form an allegiance with this guy, you had to prove yourself by gaining a bunch of favor. In the process of gaining that favor, you have pissed off a bunch of other people that don't like him. So yeah, it would work that way.
Okay.
DT Morlock is asking for clarification on Shaman styles. Did you say it was going to be similar or very similar to something called Beast Lord?
The Spirit Warden's interaction with his pet is some people will reference that is similar to how the Beast Lord worked in EQ2.
Okay.
Which is a class that I designed, so it kind of has a place in my heart.
It rings true throughout other titles you've worked with.
Yeah.
R. Flynn is asking if we can get Tony on here some night. Guys, just so you know, these guys are kind enough to take an hour or so out of their evenings every week and talk to us. There's no guarantees we can get anyone on here.
Let's see if we can get him on here now.
Oh dear. Ask and you shall receive, I guess.
We'll see if he's available.
Well, that's very kind. No rush to the guys. Again, these folks are kind enough to join us. So if we can only get certain people, that's how the ball bounces. They're kind enough just to take the time out from developing the game. Let's see. There were a couple questions. Actually, if we're going to see if Tony's available, I will hold on.
Here's a question from Foxwood EQ. We've seen many games struggle with dealing with hardcore players, releasing a lot of new content very fast to keep them interested, which usually alienates more casual players that can't keep up. What do you have in the works for something like that, or brainstorming for things like that?
Yeah, this is actually kind of a tough question. So our game,
I can take a stab at it if you want, Salim.
I mean, I got it, but it's just like
verbalizing it. Yeah, no.
The MMO player has definitely changed since the days of EverQuest. I mean, rushing to max level, just to be the first to say they did this, that, and the other. That is something that we cannot stop. I'm not going to advocate putting in systems that try to hinder someone's progress, because that cascades down. It just keeps the alienation there, right? If someone wants to be an achiever, they're going to be an achiever. That's just their personality. We're not building our game to necessarily support achievers specifically. We're just building a game where we want people to have fun, and we want whatever a casual person can pull out of our game that's fun. We want to make sure that we support that as much as we can without changing the identity of our game. So there will definitely be cases where this guy rushed to the end, or this group of people rushed to the end, and they're beating their head against a wall. Will that force us to put out content super fast and make this gap larger? I want to say no. I mean, we have to depend. It depends on the situation. The way that we're doing leveling with the more horizontal stuff should certainly mitigate that to a point. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of we have to get in there and see. Once we start actually implementing some of these things, and going through it, looking at the theory and seeing how it actually works in the real world, we'll have to consider things like this and try to resolve them if we see that there is a problem.
It's kind of a philosophical question too, really. Like what is end game to you? Is it reaching a maximum level? Because you know, and with this horizontal progression, you know, maybe that's not exactly what it used to be in other games, you know.
Yeah.
Or is it discovering everything in the world? I mean, I don't see any way of rushing through that. I don't see how that's even possible. But yeah. So I mean, it really depends on what you mean.
Ben hits the nail on the head, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like whatever experience you bring out of it, and I mean, people will listen to me; they'll hear me say that a lot. It's just how I view, playing games. It's just an experience to me. I don't say that this game is worse than this game necessarily. It's just this was a different experience for me. And when it comes to playing playing a Pantheon or DAOC or whatever you're playing, your memories are kind of wrapped around, they come from the experiences you had. So if you were a casual EQ player and you never got to max level, but when you talk about EQ, you get really excited about it, you didn't have to get to the end game. You didn't care about the fact that there was this large gap between you and this other guy. You just cared about your sphere of influence, like where you had fun. And hopefully we can reproduce that, right? We want people to just have fun on multiple levels.
There will always be that community that tries to min-max a title.
Oh yeah, of course.
Whether you design it to or not.
Absolutely. And some of our systems definitely they will min-maxers will enjoy them. Will the content want you to min-max? There's certainly going to be encounters that are going to have you at the blistering edge. You need to make sure you get your hit points up. You need to get your mitigation. But that's just a natural. I mean, that's just how mechanics work, right? If you want to do the hardest stuff, you got to get the best gear. You got to have some experienced players. You got to have some level of coordination. It's just a fact of life, a fact of gaming in general.
Really quickly here, one last question from chat before we go to a few quick questions and finish the night up with. Zoms is asking, what is incentivizing the casual players at a certain point? Specifically regarding to universal drops and player submitted items. Like what is the more casual player incentive which will keep drawing them in?
The word casual is really scary.
It's one of those dirty words in game development.
It's not really dirty. It's just that
it's what defines a casual player.
It depends on what you define as a casual player. What is a casual player to you? We have been very upfront with the type of game we're making. We are making a game where you will have to invest a chunk of time in order to advance or accomplish things. Whatever that time, the amount of time is, we still have to figure that out. What is the average game session for us? And out of that game session, what's considered casual and what's considered hardcore? As far as incentivizing the casual gamer, I mean, I'm not even sure I understand what that means. Are you asking what are we putting in specifically for the casual gamer to get because they're casual? I couldn't answer that. I haven't sat down and said, hey, we need to put in a system that is specifically targeting the casual player. Because I don't know, does casual mean the solo player? Does casual, what does that mean?
Well, the question was specifically in terms of itemization.
Well, we'll definitely have. If the question is, are you gonna have to camp for items? You're gonna have to camp for items. In some case, there's gonna be rare drops. There's gonna be a certain mob that spawns and he has an item. He may not drop it all the time. You will definitely have to do that type of stuff, or you can do that type of stuff. But there's also a notion of global drops. You could kill an orc pawn and he could drop this super awesome thing. Rarely. So if you're out and about and you're just hunting or whatever, and you're not going into dungeons, you're just XPing, you still have this chance of effectively winning the lottery. Your odds will be better than winning the lottery, of course. But so in regards to are you not going to be able to get drops because you're a casual guy and you can't camp for 8 hours? Yes, you'll be able to get drops. And, and since most things are tradable, if you can't get the drop, then you might be able to just buy it from another player, which is, the beauty of having a player-driven economy where most items you can just sell to someone else.
And that's not even counting the possibility of a crafting system or even an involved crafting system
Yes,
where
yes.
certain items could be made that way. Well, again, with the time
Correct.
investment as well.
Yep, that is another great point. Excuse me. So hopefully that answered the question. I don't want to leave a question completely unanswered. Hopefully that answered it.
And again, that would also probably go with the balance thing, because I've seen some games where the crafting system is kind of just, it's kind of just there. A lot of drops tend to be a lot better than the crafting items. Even just some of the regular world drops of uniques or rares. And
Yeah. We had when I put the crafting stuff in Vanguard, it was that system sucked like at least 10 years of my life away. And it was really involved, and people could make a lot of stuff. But of course, quantity doesn't really mean much, because game mechanics dictate what's important. And, people just made a few things out of the, couple 600,000-700,000 things that they could make. They only made, I'd say upwards of 100K, if that. So yeah, that's a delicate balance. Vanguard, it was a nightmare. Eventually we put in stuff like, having components drop in the APW, that required crafters of max level. But all that is saying is that, your guild just has to get someone up to max level super fast, so that they can craft these top end items. So it kind of, it just creates kind of this weird, uncomfortable situation as far as the system is no longer fun. The system is just, a wall that I have to get over to get this item. So it just requires a level of thought, and there's certainly a lot of philosophical angles to that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sorry about the drop there, guys. There was one other question that a couple people have been asking about in the chat, and this will be our last question for the night as we are approaching 8 p.m. EST. A couple people have been asking what happens if the Kickstarter isn't able to go through, if you guys aren't quite able to make your goal. I know you touched on this briefly. If you guys can't say anything more right now, that's fine. But a couple people were wanting to ask, what are the plans to move forward after that? Because you guys have mentioned there are a lot of plans in place to make sure this game happens.
Yeah, we've. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
It's okay. We've got several plans. Like we've always been upfront about it as well. If we can't get the money through Kickstarter, we'll look into other means as well. We still want to remain crowdfunded if at all possible, just because it leaves the power in the players' hands. We've recently set up a website which works as kind of a social hub. And we've got today, in fact, we actually got a few people in there starting to test it out and give feedback. So that's going to be ready after the Kickstarter as well. So that will be additional funding as well. Whether the Kickstarter fails or succeeds, that's still going to be in place. A lot of the pledge rewards and tiers will be available on the site there as well. We have some ideas as to what we can do for some extra special stuff, like some subscriptions, which will allow you to be directly involved with the development team. Some cool stuff in there.
Yes,
we've got
a coffee with Brad.
Have a coffee with Brad. You're buying. No, but but there's a few ideas there. We're getting some feedback from the early testers. And we're making some adjustments and whatnot. We'll have a better statement as to what's all going to be included in the next week or two. But it'll definitely be ready after long.
To add to that, just to reiterate that, like Ben said, crowdfunding was one part of the option. Obviously, 800K wasn't enough. We are very serious about making this game and getting the money we need. I mean, if it doesn't happen, we can honestly look back and say, well, it wasn't like we didn't try. So we're definitely got a lot of stuff going on, the stuff that Ben mentioned, on top of some other stuff that Brad is looking into. So we're not dead. obviously we would rather have this thing be, already over $2 million, but things don't always work out exactly how you want them to. But the one thing that we want to ride with this is that we have momentum. I mean, people obviously like, the ideas we've put forth. Every time we've, talked publicly, people seem positive about this concept. So we've got some momentum. We're going to try to ride this momentum into, like he said, got a website. If things don't get funded here, then people will be able to just, take their pledges and go over there and we can run it on that side. So yeah, hopefully things end up turning out for the better due to all the hype and stuff that we've gotten out of this once we rebuild the website and the other ways we're going to get funding.
Have you guys looked at any other crowdfunding websites such as GoFundMe?
We've talked about Indiegogo. I haven't heard of that one you just mentioned. Also, there's another one called Gust that I was talking to Brad and Ben about, where you can basically fund a company versus a project, I think. So yeah, we've talked about other stuff. Whether we go down those avenues, it's just another thing on the table to consider.
Yeah, we're not giving up. It's a short story.
Well,
there's lots of avenues.
Ben tried to make me give up. Ben told me to quit.
I did. No, I didn't. What are you talking about?
That's just because he wants to do all the design stuff.
Yeah. I'm switching over to designer.
Thought you wanted to do art.
Oh, I'll do that too. I don't care. I'll do it all.
Wow,
Yeah,
sweet. Awesome. Can I still collect the paycheck? Sweet.
So we are wrapping up here as I get kicked offline again. This does not bode well for Terran Tuesdays.
Uh-oh.
This does not bode well. I cannot fight a war if I can't even stay connected. Not good. So thank you guys again. Appreciate your honesty. Appreciate you being very open with our audience. I'm sure they absolutely love it. They've been eating it up all night in chat. Thank you so much. Once again, guys, please go to the Kickstarter, support them. Tell your friends about the Kickstarter. Post links to these videos, to their Kickstarter, to their websites, on your Twitter, Facebook, Steam groups, everything. It's so important that you do so. We have a giveaway to do real quick.
Yep.
We have a Rob and Dan giveaway to do. Rob, take it away.
We are going to be giving away a copy of Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and it's going to be This giveaway is going to be run through the Nightbot that we have set up in our chat. So if anyone, we'll give like about maybe 30 seconds to a minute so people can voice out in chat. And it's going to be to a random active chat user. So if you're simply lurking right now, just say hello in chat. That way Nightbot will take you into consideration. And actually, that might not work. It says right here, active chatters are defined as users who have spoken in the past 10 minutes. So it might not work out that well for other people. But yeah, it's a copy of Elder Scrolls Skyrim for Steam. And if you are the lucky winner, please send a message to the Rob and Dan Show here on twitch.tv and send your Twitch... or send your Steam email address, and then we will send that game right out to you.
We do these every so often, every few days. Not quite as much lately. We've been skipping on it for the last week or so, but we do love doing these every so often, which is just another wonderful reason to spend a little bit of time here every week.
Okay, so I'm going to click the giveaway button now, and we'll see who gets it. IT Paladin, you are the winner of the copy of Elder Scrolls Skyrim. If you already have a copy of it, just let us know in chat, and we will send that off to somebody else and just re-roll the giveaway. If you would like it, then just, again, go and send us a message on twitch.tv to the Rob and Dan Show account, and just send your Steam email address, and we will send that game right out to you. And just like to let everyone, just remind everyone that we are going to be taking a quick break here in a couple of minutes, and then we are going to be playing or doing our Terran Tuesday for this week, which is Planet Side 2. Vu, you actually said before we started broadcasting that you worked on Planet Side 2.
Yes, I did. I did the props and structures and terrain stuff there, and I am TR. I was on what server was I on? My character was Taco Shop, but I'm trying to remember what server. I haven't played in so long. I got to jump back in there to get it. But yeah, I do enjoy the game still, and I'd like to get back in there and play some.
Oh, IT Paladin said he already has a copy of Skyrim, so we're going to re-roll on that and see if we can get another lucky winner. Re-rolled Sedona?
Sedana.
Sedana, you are the re-rolled winner. Just let us know in chat if you already own the game or if you don't, and then if you don't already own it, just get a hold of us on twitch.tv, the Rob and Dan Show account. Send us a message with your Steam email address.
A quick bump before we go off here too. KTAM Radio did an interview with you guys, and they loved it. They had such fun with it. We had a link to them. They were kind enough to post a link in the chat if you guys are so interested, if you have not heard it yet. Bam, we got that message. There we go. That's all we have for the Pantheon Developer Series this week. Thank you guys for joining us. Vu, Ben, thank you both for joining us here right on time.
Thanks for having us.
Not quite so much on time, but appreciate you taking the time anyhow.
Thanks for having us, guys.
It's been a ton of fun as always. We will hopefully see you next week for another Pantheon Developer Series. Thank you all for joining us as well. We're going to go to a short break here. We're going to leave the stream live. Stick around for Terran Tuesdays, where Rob, Ben, or also known as Bob the Ninja Goldfish, not Pantheon Ben, but other Ben, and Rob and I hop into the world of PlanetSide 2 and kick ass as Terran. We'll be right back right here on twitch.tv/The Rob and Dan Show.